Still politics today here on Channel Television, and we are looking at the non-confirmation of Mr. Ibrahim Magu. Don't forget that so many other comments coming in from here. Serap has has just said that they will drag the Senate to the United Nations, and they say, quote, by relying on a report they knew or ought to know is baseless and politically motivated to reject Mr. Magu's appointment as chairman of the EFCC. The Senate of Nigeria has flagrantly violated his right to a fair hearing and is implicitly working to weaken, intimidate, harass, and ultimately undermine the independence and freedom of action of the EFCC in its efforts to combat high-profile official corruption. The organization urged Mr. Forced to urgently intervene in this matter to stop further intimidation and harassment of a prominent anti-corruption campaigner and human rights defender. That's from Serap Director Adetokunbo Mumini. Also, Kakol is also speaking on this. They say, without prejudice to the veracity or otherwise of these infringements, we insist that what is really at the background of the debacle is the reality that the Senate knows Magu's source and the fact that he's worth it. We find it utterly ridiculous that it is at this point that the DSS is just coming up with the so-called infringements about a year of Magu superintending over an agency of government that is so central to the anti-corruption drive of our country, writes Debo Adenro of Kakol. We'll come back to you, Mr. Onuma, so that we can continue on your train of thought there. But we are also trying to look at some of these allegations. Yes. And they're there for Mr. Magu to really talk about, and perhaps even his lawyers can also look at these other allegations. Mr. Onuma was trying to talk about, he's already given us his explanation on the housing matter. Mm-hmm. For some others, they still talk about his activities while he was there at the EFCC, mm-hmm. With some other files that were with him, and how he was sent back to the police, which was the parent body that seconded him to the EFCC, and how he was reprimanded for keeping investigative files within his custody. Now, let's look at all this now, because in the fight against corruption, they say, as they put it in law, you must be above board at all times, yes. Just like Caesar's wife. Yes.
Well, it will be very difficult for me as a neutral observer, as a bystander in the entire scenario.
That's why you're here.
Yes, to
give the other side.
Yes, to start defending either Magu or the Senate. I would only rely on constitutional provisions and law, and to an extent, morality and conscience. The law, Section 60 of the Constitution, gives the Senate the power to regulate its own procedure. Now, if Senate decides that from the reports it has received, and perhaps from its observations, that it need not invite Magu for discussions or screening, the law does not provide for screening. Senate can go ahead and decide on it. Magu does not have a right. It is when you have a right that you are entitled to the principles of fair hearing. And when your right is to be affected in any way whatsoever, either by a tribunal or an administrative body, that is when you are entitled to fair hearing. But if you are under a privilege, or you are under subjection by appointment, as in the case of Magu, it depends on the procedure that the Senate wants to adopt. If they say, okay, let's give Magu fair hearing, as some people are saying, fine and good. As a lawyer, I'll say, okay, give him fair hearing, let him speak. But it goes beyond fair hearing. The Senate has said the DSS reports, which is an executive body, indicts Magu to start looking into the details of he has a house or he doesn't have a house, or he pays so much for a house, or he has the EFCC file at home. I think it's debasing the argument. You can dig and dig and dig and dig, and there will be explanations. Even the devil himself justifies its actions. So you can dig and dig and dig and dig to as far as you can dig, and you continue to look for answers, and it becomes an unending, unwinding road. So Senate has decided Magu has no legal right whatsoever. As far as the position of chairman of EFCC is concerned, the intendment of the law a substantive chairman. And since the president has taken that step to invoke the power of the Senate to confirm or otherwise, we must respect that power. And what the power speaks about is confirmation. It is not screening and confirmation. When words are expressly used in a statute, in law, in interpreting that statute, you must use the express words used and discard any importation whatsoever, any extraneous word. In trying to say you have to screen him, let him bring his certificate and all that, it is extraneous, especially in view of the express provision of the Constitution that the Senate is entitled to regulate its own procedure. So I would definitely be reluctant in going into whether he actually paid 40 million naira for a house, or whether he took first class ticket to wherever, or whether he entered somebody's private jet and all that. As far as I'm concerned, those go to no issue. What is an issue is, does the Senate have the power to do what it has done? The Senate has the constitutional power to do what it has done, and that is my position. And in my view, anybody who, and I want to make this point clearly, because I've heard a lot of people, respected people, especially some of these non-governmental organizations who have suddenly turned to become the mouthpiece of the executive arm of government, making all sorts of insinuations against the Senate. I think it is time, irrespective of what you think of the personalities in the Senate, for the position, for the office of the Senate, for the institutional strength of the Senate to be reinforced by the Senate acting, proactively acting, inviting some of these people who make all these careless statements before it, arresting them and asking them questions as to why they will go out to the public to impugn the integrity of the Senate. Because when the Senate takes a constitutional action that is empowered to take, and you go to the public to berate them, to more or less, if in my own understanding, assault their integrity, it is very important that Senate protects its integrity, irrespective of who and who occupies the Senate. We have had issues against the Senate. The Senate, in my view, has a lot of questions to answer, including the House of Representatives. In fact, most of them, the manner in which they entered into those chambers leaves a lot of questions to answer. But that is absolutely beside the question. The question is the Senate empowered to either confirm or not confirm Magu?